Hello, Sean Partridge here from EP Training Services, also lgvbrokers.co.uk. We put some videos together before to give you an idea about driver CPC, etc., and we thought it would be a good idea to give you an overview about LGV licenses, the entitlement, how you go about getting your HGV license, whether or not you need driver CPC. There's quite a bit of information out there already available. Some of it is factually correct, some of it is not so correct. We just thought we'd put an overview just to give you an idea, because if you're looking to get your LGV license, you need to know what entitlement you want to go for. So this is the selfie video, so I will be operating and turning it on and off myself. So first things first, let's have a look at the different types of LGV license entitlement. This is a C1 vehicle. It's a goods vehicle and it has a gross vehicle weight exceeding 3.5 tons but not exceeding 7.5 tons. Now if you're a paramedic, or maybe you want to get a license for moving your horse box, then a C1 license may be all you require. Those who pass their car test before the 1st of January 1997 will have acquired C1 7.5 ton via grandfather rights. Those who didn't after that date and want to drive a C1 will have to do the necessary theory tests, practical tests, etc. C1 is also deemed classed as a vocational license, and it is what we call a medium's goods vehicle, Passing the C1 will not give you an entitlement to tow a trailer in excess of 750 kilos gross vehicle weight. So that's the weight of the trailer plus what it's authorised to carry. This is a category C LGV type vehicle. Category C will entitle the holder to drive a goods vehicle in excess of 3.5 tons, but not exceeding, under construction use regulations, 32 ton. This one is a 15 ton. Very common class 2 category C is an 18 ton. Category C, also known as class 2, also known as rigid vehicles. Rigid vehicles whereby the trailer and the cab are permanently fixed together. When you go for your LGV license, or even if you go for your medium goods C1 license, you don't have to do the C1 first. You can leapfrog the C1 and go straight on for the category C if you so require. Okay, this is what we class as a C plus E, also known as a class 1. This is actually a drawbar where the unit is towing the trailer in excess of 750 kilos gross vehicle weight. You can also do it on an articulate, it's entirely up to you. Most training companies do use drawbars because of the versatility, i.e. one week it's a rigid category C, the following week it's a C plus E. At the end of the day it doesn't matter, what matters is that you get your C plus E entitlement. You will only gain C plus E provisional entitlement once you pass the category C, and that C plus E provisional must show on your driving licence. So when you pass your category C, you have to send your licence off to DVLA and then wait for the provisional entitlement to come back before you can do your practical test. So those companies that say you can do it over a 2-week period, i.e. the class 2 1 week, the class 1 the second week, is being slightly economical with the truth. Okay, so that's C plus E. E, incidentally, represents trailer entitlement. E, anything over 750 kilos gross vehicle weight. That's the weight of the trailer plus what it's authorised to carry. Okay, so that's a look at the different licence entitlements. It's really your decision whether you want to go and do the C1 or leapfrog the C1 and do the C. Looking at the vehicles themselves, one might argue that it may be easier to do the C1, and if that's all you need, then just go for the C1. Alternatively, if you're looking to drive goods vehicles for a living, for example, then it may be advisable to go straight on to the category C. The option really is yours. Okay, just a quick look at initial driver CPC. Do you need it? Don't you need it? The general rule of thumb is that if you don't already have an entitlement to drive a goods vehicle over 3.5 tons by virtue of not having done a C1 test previously, or having passed your car test before 1st of Jan 1997, you don't need initial driver CPC. You're just subject to periodic driver CPC. If, for example, you're going to be a paramedic, then you'd only need a C1, and you would more than likely be exempt from driver CPC. The general rule of thumb, though, as we say, is if you're going to drive a goods vehicle commercially, then driver CPC will apply to you. The initial driver CPC first, which is a theory test and practical test, and we'll have a look at those in a bit more detail a bit later. What we strongly advise is that you Google driver CPC exemptions and see if you think you meet that criteria, because not everybody does need driver CPC. Some of the exemptions are quite vague, and it really is down to yourself to decide whether or not you think driver CPC applies. If it does not, and you think you are exempt, then should you get stopped by enforcement, then the onus will be on you to demonstrate the fact that you are exempt and provide suitable evidence. But general rule of thumb, if you're going to drive commercially, you're going to need to get initial driver CPC, which will go hand in hand with the whole LGV license acquisition process. So if you go to a good training company, they will no doubt manage the whole process for you, from medical right through to, if necessary, the module 4. Right, let's have a look at the license application process in a bit more detail. There are a number of hoops you've got to jump through to attain your license, and if driver CPC applies as well, then for C1 and for C, you're talking about 3 theory tests and 2 practical tests. Okay, but before we do that, you need to undergo a medical and apply for the appropriate provisional entitlement through the DVLA. Now, you can request online for the documentation to be sent out to you, which is the D2 and the D2 and the D4 forms. You can apply for these to be sent out. You can download the D4 form online. You can't download the D2 provisional license application form, because there is a facility, should it be required, for you to put your photo in here, so you can't download that. Again, if you speak to your local training company, which you can find via nolgbbrokers.co.uk, they will no doubt both supply the information for you and the necessary forms, and assist you with the application process as well. Okay, so the medical first, you've got your D4 medical form. Just make sure it's the most current one, up to date. This version here is 0413. I believe that's the most current, but obviously as this video ages slightly, there may be later versions. Make sure you've got the most up-to-date version. So you take this along to your doctor. Most GPs will do this. They will charge you a fee, varying, I guess, depending on the relationship you have with your doctor, from £40 up to £150. There are services out there, doctors who just specialise in LGV medicals. Maybe an idea to look online and see what you can find. Again, if you go to your local training provider, they no doubt have relationships, setups with local practitioners. They can probably arrange all that for you as well. So book your medical with your doctor first, or with your local training provider. Take your medical form along with you. It's quite straightforward. It shouldn't take any more than 20-25 minutes to complete. There's some information you need to supply on here at the bottom of each page. You have to put your name and date of birth all the way through, and then they're looking for some information at the back: who you are, your address, who your GP is, and then the doctor will complete the rest of this. He'll give you the form back, and then you need to complete what we call a D2, which is a vocational license, provisional vocational license application form. So this is a D2. Again, you can request this to be sent out to you, or just go and see your local training provider. It's quite straightforward stuff. A couple of things you need to be aware of. They're going to ask you what provisional entitlement you're seeking. Now, we're looking at either C on here or C1, depending on what you want to do. It's probably advisable, you're not going to lose anything by ticking the C and the C1. Remember, C1 7.5 ton. It's got C1E here as well, which is 7.5 ton with trailer. It's not class 1 rigid. That's C plus E. You can't apply for that initially. You have to go for the C or the C1. As I said, it's the same process of going for a C1 as what it is for a C. So if you so decide, you can leapfrog the C1 and go straight on to your category C. Okay, so make sure you fill this out correctly, identifying what provisional entitlement you want. If necessary, just tick them all. There's the opportunity to renew your license on here as well. So if it is coming up to its expiry, remember they're only valid for 10 years, then there's an opportunity for you to update your photo on here as well. They want to check about your eyesight and hearing. Okay, if you wear glasses, it's fine, and you will have a minor eye test with your GP. They'll ask if you want to be an organ donor, and then your conduct. Do you have any points? And more specifically, do they relate to offences concerning driving goods vehicles? So you might be in a 7.5 ton driver who's going for class 2, who maybe have called before the traffic commissioner. Yep, you need to make a note of this. Then section 4, they're going to ask you about your health, any underlying conditions, heart conditions, sleep apnea, etc. Now, proving your identity, section 5. Okay, if you have a valid new style photo driving license, you do not need to verify your identity. Nobody does. Okay, nobody needs to complete this section if you have a photo style license. If you don't have a photo style license, then you're going to have to apply for one, and you've got an old style driving license, you're going to have to apply for one and put your photo in there as well. There is a declaration at the bottom here asking you to date and sign, and it does say keep it in the white box, so please do keep it in the white box. Okay, so you've got your D4 form completed. You've got your D2 provisional license application completed as well. Let's send the pack out to you with the D2 and the D4 form. They'll also have given you a pre-addressed envelope, okay, which will go through to the vocational licensing section at DVLA. So what you do, you put your D4 and your D2 form into the brown envelope. Now, I personally advise our guys that they need to send off both parts of their driving licence. Okay, not just the plastic part. Send both parts through. Sorry, not just the plastic bit. Send both parts through to DVLA. You should get your licence back within about 7 to 10 days. And the only thing that will change on your licence is the provisional entitlement, which will show on your paper part, your counterpart of your driving licence. Okay, so that's the D4 form completed. You've applied for your provisional. You've sent off both parts of your driving licence in this brown envelope. Remember, put a stamp on it appropriately. Send it off to DVLA. Should come back to you in about 7 to 10 days. You're waiting for your provisional licence to come back. It's highly advisable that you start preparing adequately for your theory tests. But bear in mind, you can't book your theory tests until you get your provisional licence entitlement back from DVLA. Again, I do stress, if you go to a good local training provider, they'll arrange all this for you. Okay, so let's have a look at, remember it's the same process for a C1 as what it is for C. So let's go for the whole process for a category C. And let's include initial driver CPC on this. Okay, so we've got 4 modules to get through, 4. Module 1 and Module 2, a theory test. Module 3 and Module 4, practical tests. Okay, let's have a look at these individually. Right, Module 1. Module 1 is split into 2. You have Module 1A and Module 1B. These are all independent theory tests. That's to say that if you pass 2 and fail 1, you just come back and sit the one that you found. But if you prepare adequately, there shouldn't be a problem with it. Okay, Module 1A is your theory test. Okay, they're going to ask you 100 questions. You need to get at least 85 right to get a pass. This looks like, feels like the car theory test you no doubt did. But the questions are going to be different. Okay, these are relating to driving a goods vehicle. So you're going to be asked about driver's hours. You're going to be asked about driver CPC. You're going to be asked about coupling, uncoupling semi-trailers, transporting dangerous goods by road, transporting livestock, what to do in emergency, different speeds for different sized goods vehicles on different roads. You do need to put a bit of time into this to study appropriately. Everybody learns at different speeds. Normally about 6 to 8 hours worth of work is required, but you do need to study appropriately. Incidentally, your theory test will be done at a theory test centre close to you. You can either book it online or again speak to your local training provider. They'll arrange all that for you. Suitable training study material. We issue the official DSA guide to theory test for drivers of large vehicles. The only thing I need to make you aware on here, this is for drivers of large vehicles. Okay, so you're going to be, well, there are questions on here relating to PCV, bus, coach. Now, if you're doing goods vehicles, when you go into this, they'll ask you what you want to do. Don't do buses, just keep it to LGV. Okay, module 1A, 100 questions, get at least 85 right. Module 1B, hazard perception. For those who have done it before, it's very similar. In fact, it's exactly the same. You are sitting in front of a computer, which then turns into a simulation of a car, and you're looking out the windscreen, driving down a road, and you have to, by clicking the mouse button, pressing the space bar, or even touching the screen itself, identify hazards as soon as you see them occur. But guys, what you think is a hazard and I think is a hazard is probably quite different to what the Driving Standards Agency think is a hazard. So we need to get into the mindset of what they're looking for. And the only way you're going to do that is by studying and practicing. Again, there is the official, this isn't the official one, but this does cover hazard perception. There's plenty of learning material out there. And again, speak to your local training provider, they'll sort all that out for you. Okay, so for this one, you're going to get 20 hazard clips. Each hazard clip has a maximal attainable score of 5 points. So 20 video clips, 5 points, 100 points attainable, and you need to get at least 67 right to pass. So about 2/3. So you really need to be scoring 3, 4s and 5s on each particular clip. Remember, if you click it every second or too often, you'll get done for cheating and you'll get 0 points on that particular clip. So module 1B, hazard perception, 100 points attainable, get at least 67 right. Module 2, another theory test, driver CPC, relatively recent, came in 10th of September 2009 for goods vehicles. Okay, if you need it, okay, you're going to drive commercially, remember check the exemptions. If you do need it, you're going to have to pass this driver CPC case study module 2. Now, one thing we can't give you is the questions and answers in advance, because the Driving Standards Agency, in their infinite wisdom, have decided that they're not going to release the questions and answers in advance. Okay, so what's the format? Right, you're going to get 50 questions. These 50 questions are broken down into 7 case studies. Right, and these are scenarios, situations, stories about goods vehicles drivers and what they get up to in their professional life. So they'll give you 7 different situations. Okay, and then for each scenario case study, they're going to ask you 6 to 8 multi-choice questions with multi-choice answers. So 7 case studies, 6 to 8 questions, 50 questions in total. You need to get these 40 right to pass it. It's pretty straightforward stuff, because there are people out there that are just walking off the street without having done any prior training, because it's not necessarily that difficult. What I would say is that those whose English is not their first language are experiencing problems getting through the driver's CPC, because if you read it carefully, a lot of the time the answer is in the case study, but not only that, it's multi-choice, so the answers are there for you. So those who are having problems is those whose English is not their first language, because if you can't read the case study, you've got no chance in answering the examinations. Having said that, this whole thing is deemed at about an NVQ level 2. It's quite straightforward. There are various training manuals out there. The Driving Standards Agency have come out with a book for driver CPC. You're not going to find the questions and answers in here. This will tell you about driver CPC, what it means, what you've got to do, who it applies to, etc. But you're not going to get the questions and answers on it. There is a disc out there. If you go to eptraining.co.uk, we do sell a disc which covers the syllabus, and it's got some sample case studies questions in there, which are the same type and level as what you're going to find in the theory test itself. If you go on to, I believe it's Theory for All, the word theory, the number 4, and the word all, they do some online driver CPC module 2 training. But just to point out again, you're not going to get the questions and answers in advance. Okay, so you've just done all your 3 theory tests on the same day. You will get your result there and then. Okay, so as you walk out, you know if you passed or failed. Remember, adequate instruction and preparation is required for this one. At that point, it's advisable that you contact your local training company, and then they will arrange your practical driver training, which is what we class as module 3. Okay, practical driver training, module 3. I would argue that this is the most challenging element of the whole license acquisition process. See, a lot of people think driving a truck is relatively straightforward. Most people can drive it forwards and backwards. Driving it to the standard required to pass the test takes some doing. You really need to find a proper training company that has its own vehicles, is local to you, can deliver the training for you, and arrange your practical test at the end of it. The training, different companies will vary. Some will do one-to-one. Some you'll do it where you share the cab. Some will do it over a 5-day period. Some will do it based entirely on your individual circumstances. It's highly advisable that you go and visit maybe 2 training companies in your area. Have a look at the vehicles, have a look at the company, make sure that they're the sort of company that's going to help you meet your aspirations. Whatever you do, don't go with a broker. All they're going to do is farm your work out to somebody who might not even be in your area. You won't have any choice about where you train, with whom you train, or how you train. If you source a local training company in your area, a reputable local training company, they should get you up to the standard to pass the test for the module 3. The driving test itself is about an hour and a half, so you're going to do some tell me, show me questions first. Then you're going to do the reversing exercise, and then you're going to be out on the road for about an hour. Just to summarise the test, you can get up to 15 minor faults and still pass it. Okay, one serious fault, for example, you've mounted a curb, that's an automatic failure. And where you have a dangerous, the examiner may well have had to take appropriate action, and again, that's a serious. So you can get 15 minors. However, if you repetitively do the same minor error, that minor may then develop into a serious if you keep doing it. Okay, so that's the driving test, the practical module 3. For those who need driver CPC, initial driver CPC, you cannot drive commercially until you complete module 4 of the driver CPC, and that's a kind of practical show me, tell me questions. Goes into a lot of detail. You have to use a vehicle to demonstrate your answers. Now, we have done a video that goes through the questions and answers relating to module 4, and if you just type in driver CPC module 4 in YouTube, you'll see our video there, and that will give you an idea what it's all about. Okay, so when you passed your practical driving test on the category C, and you've got to do your module 4, you've yet to do it, just keep hold of your license when you pass your test. Don't give it to the examiner to send off, because you're going to need that license to come back and do your module 4. When you've done your module 4, send off both parts of your driving license and your blue driving test certificate to DVLA. They'll then send you your full category C license entitlement back, along with automatic provisional for C+E class 1. When you get your class 1 back, then if you so decide, you can then come back and do some driver training and the practical test. So just to recap, license entitlements, we have the MGV medium goods vehicles category C1, the LGV HGV category C class 2 rigid type vehicles, and then we have the C+E articulated drawbar. it's up to you whether you want to go for the C1 or the C first, but as we said earlier, if you're going for driving goods vehicles, go straight and do the category C. If you only need C1, then maybe only go for C1. So we hope this video has helped and give you a rough idea about what to expect, what's involved. Incidentally, the whole process from medical right through to gaining your Module 4, it's never an exact science. There are various different parameters, hoops you need to jump through, passing theory tests, getting through medicals, getting the provisional license back in time. But you're looking at probably best part of 8 weeks from start to finish.